The Summoner's Nexus TCG is a digital indie trading card game that I've been working on for the last 3.5 odd years. It's now in its pre-alpha / open beta phase, and so I'm getting more information out as to how you play certain deck lists and compositions, things that the community has figured out so far. To that end, I would like to showcase to you the Forest N.B.K strat, named after one of the members of the community, N.B.K. You see, Natalie had a problem, and it was that she did not know how to play the Forest card subset in the way that had been standardized, in the way that we all knew and had quote-unquote solved it to be played. And so when she attempted to play a match with the Forest card subset, she played the cards in the wrong order and accidentally created this strategy. Funny enough, despite missing the ordinary checks that you would go through when trying to play the deck, she managed to win the match, and in a way that no one had ever really considered as being viable for this deck. And so we sat down, we workshopped it, and we created a more refined version of what she had done by mistake. That is what led to the creation of what you see in front of you, a version of the Forest Guard subset that doesn't rely on building, maintaining, and preserving forest counters. Instead, we spend them early on in the game for very, very, very big numbers, right? So we trade counter generation, we trade preservation and longevity for higher stats, and then we use that to just snowball for the rest of the game. I'll go through each card, why it's included, and how it's supposed to be used, just one by one. The very first card to consider, and the most important one in the strategy, is the Forest Guard Kalpabanian. Now, he is the linchpin of what allows this strategy to work. It all revolves around his effect, which is Melody of the Forest. You remove a forest counter from this card when it battles and swap the original attack and defense values of the opposing card. Now, most offensive cards just will not have the stats to contend with this effect, and he will destroy them relatively easily. You play him in your counter zone specifically to prevent any offensive strikes from getting to you, because as you can probably tell from the layout of this, there is no defense on the first turn of the game. You have nothing to protect yourself, and so if they manage to get past Kalpabanian, you are cooked. Now, with that in mind, that is why we also play the card Exorcism. Now, Exorcism has the ability to remove any status condition in the game because it places the cleanse status condition on the card that you target, which overrides any other status condition. Why this is relevant is if Kalpabanian is targeted with anything that could, disrupt it or send it to the grave or anything like that, you can cleanse Kalpabanian, make sure that it stays safe. That's not the only reason that this card is included though. It's also been put in the deck for a very specific matchup in the current meta of the game. Now, in the Wandering subset, you have two cards, the Wandering Ryu and the Wandering Tuertian, who have the ability to apply the Quickened status condition with the effects of Kirin and the effect of Leap. Now, the Quickened status condition allows them to move at 2 times speed, which means that they basically blitz towards your defense zone on turn 1. If they manage to do that before Kalpabanian is properly mounted his defense from the counter zone, because remember, we don't play any defensive cards in our starting lineup, if they manage to get past him on turn 1, you are finished, because they're just going to attack you directly. Well, the Wandering Ryu is anyway, and then you're stuck. The idea behind playing Cleanse in your opening hand isn't just defensive, it's also offensive. If you see that your opponent tries to put the Quicken status condition on any of their attacking monsters, you cleanse that monster, which removes that status condition immediately so that they won't have enough speed to get past Kalpabanian before he's able to set up where he needs to be. So on turn 1, you're playing Kalpabanian guaranteed, you're playing Exorcism guaranteed, and you are also guaranteed to play Silenis, just like in a standard Forest Guard composition. Now, Silenis is traditionally the main card in the Forest Guard subset. His effect Tutelage allows him to generate the forest counters that they all spend to activate their effects. The catch is that at the end of each turn, his effect stipulates that you either have to destroy Silenis or remove every single forest counter on your side of the field, not just the ones that you personally generated, which can really set you back in terms of resources. Now, how the Forest Guard subset usually plays around this is to select the option where Silenis destroys himself and then try to subvert that destruction in some way so you get to carry on and preserve the counters that you've managed to generate. This version of the deck does not care about that at all. Now, how this works is you take the Forest Guard Kalpabanian and you place as many forest counters as you can. You generate as many counters as you can and you put all of them on Kalpabanian, which means that he will be able to activate his effect Melody of the Forest, which removes 1 forest counter in case he needs to. However, you don't just leave those counters sitting there, we're gonna spend them all. Now, the 3 runes that you set on turn 1 are Exorcism, Forest Guard Startup, and Forest Woodland. Silenis should set up the effective tutelage at wave start, and if you need to use Exorcism at the exact same time, then fine, go for it, go ahead. It just means that you won't be able to generate a counter off of its activation. In an ideal world though, you're able able to save the activation of Exorcism for movement phase 1, so you activate Exorcism, target a relevant card, and that will cause the effect of tutelage to place a counter on the Forest Guard Kalpabanian. You follow this up with the activation of the rune Forest Guard Startup. Its activation will cause Selenis to place another counter on Kalpabanian, and you follow that up with the activation of Forest Woodland, which will place another counter on Kalpabanian from Selenis. Now, importantly, what Forest Woodland is going to do is, well, it says that you increase a Forest Guard's attack or defense by the number of forest counters it has times 50, and then you remove those forest counters. So we are spending all of them right off the bat. We have 3 on Kalpabanian at the time that this rune is activated. So when this rune resolves, this will boost Kalpabanian's attack to 300, and then because the chain will resolve backwards, Forest Guard Startup will then place 1 more counter on Kalpabanian, allowing him to use his effect if he needs to. So by that logic, by the logic of how this version of the deck works, when we get to the end of turn 1, we are either going to have 1 forest counter left or no forest counters after Kalpabanian uses its effect, which means that Selenis doesn't need to choose the option to destroy himself. He can just choose to remove whatever existing counters there are, and then you get to carry him safely into turn 2. Now, this next portion of that turn 1 play is optional because you either play alongside those 2 cards, Minos or Goblin Forge, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve or what you feel more strongly about. Minos has an effect called Forest Labyrinth, which effectively says the first time that a Forest Guard avatar is targeted for an attack this turn, you can negate that attack. So you would play this card if you want to add some extra defense, some extra protection for Kalpabanian. You're afraid your opponent might have too many monsters, you're afraid that they might overwhelm you, so on and so forth, right? This is good to help Kalpabanian set up. On the flip side, Goblin Forge, you play Goblin Forge if you want to be a little bit greedy. Now, he has 2 effects, both of them generate 1 extra forest counter on turn 1, which means that the height that Kalpabanian would have the potential to reach when the game begins, instead of just being 300, it would be 350. So it adds extra bulk to your Kalpabanian. It makes it more powerful, but again, there's less defense with this method. Oh, and how you would use this in the combo that I just described to you is that after the activation of Forest Woodland, you would activate the effect of Hephaestus, which says that when a Forest Guard card is activated, you can place a forest counter on any other card you control. So this card will activate, place a counter on Kalpabanian, and then the chain will resolve backwards, so that way by the time the activation of Woodland comes around, this effect has already placed its counter, so it gets to be tallied in with the big boost that you get. Okay, so from there, it's really up to you how you play it. You can start kind of playing it like an ordinary Forest Guard deck after that point in the game. You're hoping to draw some defense, so you want to draw either Centaur Sage turn 1 or this card, Canine Carib. It's just a general card. It's probably one of the best generic cards for defense in the game. It has an effect called Ravenous Deep, where if your opponent chooses to destroy it, the card that destroys it will obviously lose 50 attack, but then it deals 50 damage directly to your opponent's Nexus gauge, which is really, really good. If you think that Kalpabanian is going to need help defending you, you can play this card, Entity of the Forest Guard, and you put it in your counter zone to bolster your defenses even more, because this card has the ability to reach like over 300 attack at the start of each turn, depending on how the runes are laid out, because the effect of Danger Bee says for every rune currently on the field, this card gains 50 attack. And its attack gets reset at the end of the turn, which means that even if your opponent manages to like wail into it, if it survives, it's just gonna bounce back at the end. So you use this card along with Minos to either create some crazy offense or some crazy defense. Either way, you've got a lot of pressure to like stay in the game, and a lot of these cards are low cost. There are no rank 3 cards in this deck, which means that if you choose to play it defensively, you will probably win on life on turn 6, but if you don't want to wait to do that, you can really deal some damage with these 2 cards in particular, and then I'll explain why some other cards are included. For example, you have Dominus Rex, which is not a Forest Guard avatar. He's just one of the best generic, like rank 1 cards in the game, and I say generic because he doesn't have a synergy requirements met, right? He has a synergy rating of 4, which means that we would need a deck with 4 Ancient Beast avatars for his effects to be usable. So he's not here for his effects, he's just here because he's a good stat line, right? A rank 1 card which will cost us 50 points to summon, right? 50 points from our Nexus gauge, and has 150 attack. That is the strongest rank 1 card that you can get, so it's just like 50 for 150 effectively in terms of stats. So yeah, from there you play this like an ordinary Forest Guard deck, right? You have Forest Wall, which will be able to save Selenis on turn 2 when his effect does try to destroy him, so that way he doesn't remove all of your counters that you are now trying to preserve, while also being able to like stay in the game. Kalpabanian is going to hopefully still be pretty beefy and still be able to use his effect to defend you from the counter zone, and you really, like I said, you want to draw something defensive because you can be left vulnerable, you can be left exposed if you really feel uncomfortable uncomfortable. This card, Goblin Forge, can be played in the defense zone because it has weighted stats on both attack and defense. So this can be like your defender until you draw something more meaningful. The only thing is, he's also your battery, right? When Selenis dies, this card is going to be the only card that has the ability to generate forest counters, so putting him in the defense zone, a little bit risky. But in truth, that's sort of what I like about this deck. Like, it's powerful, but it's not overpowered. You have to make sacrifices, you have to make choices, and even with this like more standardized version of it, you still have to make, like, I don't know, there's still variety in how each person would choose to play it in each game, in each scenario. So if this deck sounds like any fun to you, please give it a try. Download the Summoners Nexus TCG from our website, subscribe to the YouTube channel to be more involved and to learn more about like the different deck lists and options and counters that exist in the game, and overall have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching and take care. Bye.